This is the second part of section 10.6, solving radical equations. So if we look at this particular problem, number 4, we have x minus 2 times the square root of x minus 3 equals 3. The first thing we need to do is isolate the radical, and we'll do that by subtracting x from both sides of the equation. So that gives us negative 2 square root of x minus 3 equals 3 minus x. And now, of course, we want to square both sides of the equation. And when we do that, we have to square everything. So we have a negative 2 squared times a square root of x minus 3 squared. And that equals, remember, squaring something is multiplying it by itself. So 3 minus x squared is 3 minus x times 3 minus x. So negative 2 squared is 4. And the square root of x minus 3 squared is x minus 3. And now we have to FOIL. So when we FOIL and then combine like terms, we end up with 9 minus 6x plus x squared. Now we need to distribute on the left-hand side. So we have 4x minus 12 equals 9 minus 6x plus x squared. Now we need to get everything on one side of the equation so that it equals 0. So we will subtract 4x and add 12 to both sides. And that gives us 0 equals, and I'm going to rewrite this the other way around. So we have x squared minus 10x plus 21. And when we factor that factors as x minus 7 times x minus 3. So either x minus 7 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals 0, which means either x equals 7 or x equals 3. Now, remember, we have to check. So if we check the first one, we have 7 minus 2 times 7 minus 3. And we need to know if that equals 3. So we have 7 minus 2 times the square root of 4. And we need to know if that equals 3. 7 minus 2, now the square root of 4 is 2. So we have 7 minus 4, and we want to know if that equals 3. Well, yes, 3 equals 3. So we know that x equals 7, is an answer. Now we have to check our other answer. Does 3 work? So if we check 3, we have 3 minus 2 times 3 minus 3, and we need to know if that equals 3. So 3 minus 2 times the square root of 0, does that equal 3? 3 minus 2, the square root of 0 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. And 3 minus 0 is 3. So that one also checks. So in this case, both of our answers of x equals 7 and x equals 3 both work. So we have two solutions. So now let's look at number 5. Okay, again, we need to isolate the radical first. So subtract 7 from both sides. And we have x minus 7 equals the square root of 2x plus 1. And I guess I jumped ahead of myself a little by putting that in parentheses. But now we're going to square both sides. And so we have x minus 7 times itself equals 2x plus 1. And now we need to FOIL again. So we have x squared minus 14x plus 49 equals 2x plus 1. Now again, we need to set this whole thing equal to 0. So that means get everything on one side of the equation. So we'll subtract 2x and 1 from both sides of the equation. And that leaves us with x squared minus 16x plus 48. Now that factors into x minus 12 times x minus 4. So either x minus 12 is 0 or x minus 4 is 0. So x is either 12 or x is 4. And now, of course, we need to check both solutions. So let's start with x is 12. So we have 12, and we need to know if that equals the square root of 2 times 12 plus 1, and then plus a 7. So 12 equals the square root of 24 plus 1 plus 7. Does 12 equal the square root of 25 plus 7? Well, the square root of 25 is 5, and 5 plus 7 is 12. So that one checks. So x equals 12 is a solution. What about x equals 4? So let's check that. So we would have 4, and we need to know if that equals the square root of 2 times 4 plus 1, and then plus 7. So 2 times 4 is 8. And 8 plus 1 is 9 under the square root. So 4, does that equal square root of 9 is 3, and we still have that plus 7. So we come up with 4 equals 10. Well, that's not true, is it? So we throw that answer away. So x cannot equal 4. So our only answer is x equals 12. Now, number 6 is a little bit different because we have a square root on both sides. but we don't have anything but the square root on both sides. So that means that we can just go ahead and square both sides of the equation, which gives us 5x plus 3 equals 3x plus 7. So now let's get the x's on one side of the equation and get the numbers on the other. So if I subtract 3x from both sides, I get 2x plus 3 equals 7. And then let's subtract 3 from both sides. We get 2x equals 4. And then we're going to divide both sides by 2. So we get x equals 2. Now, of course, we still have to check that. So here we go. So we have the square root of 5 times 2 plus 3. And we need to know if that equals the square root of 3 times 2 plus 7. So 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 under the square root on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we have 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 7 under the square root. So we come up with the square root of 13 on the left-hand side and the square root of 13 on the right-hand side, which are indeed the same. So that checks, and x equals 2 is our solution. You should now be ready to do the 10.6 homework.